Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the BACP Small Business Expo. My name is Marty Malone with the Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. Before we get started, I want to provide some information. This webinar offers closed captioning. To enable closed captioning, click on the live transcript button on the bottom of your screen and choose your preferred method. We encourage attendees to ask questions. Please use the chat box on the right side of your screen to send your questions. There will be a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. And now we will start the Launching a Business in the City of Chicago webinar presented by BACP. Thank you. Linda, you can go ahead and get started.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Linda Ruelas, and I am one of the supervisors here at our Small Business Center, specifically seeing public way use as well as zoning. So we're going to go ahead and start off with Business Licensing 101. Next slide, please. So what about Business Licensing 101? So what are the business license requirements that we require here in the City of Chicago? So any business that operates in the City of Chicago is required to have a City of Chicago business license. There are some exceptions to this rule. So if you're licensed by the Illinois Department of Professional Regulations, you do not need a City of Chicago business license. Some of examples that we have include doctor's office, attorneys, architects, PAs. As far as trade license goes, those are issued by the Department of Buildings, and trade license have to do more with general contractors, electricians, plumbing, and mason licenses. Some of the types of business licenses that we offer our limited business license, which this basically covers anything that has to do with retail sales, so clothing store, administrative office, retail computing centers. So if you're selling computer items, as long as they're brand new and they're not used, would fall under a limited business license. Our next tier is regulated business licenses. This covers any type of home occupation. So if you're doing any online sales from your home, any marketing, any wedding planning, things like that, that you're able to run your home office from home, that falls under home occupation. Home repair, if you're going to be doing any type of home repair for residential homes only. Body art, board of work, expediter hotels, long-term care, and residential real estate developers all fall under our regulated business license. Our more specialized licenses have to do more with retail foods. So if you're opening up a restaurant, liquor stores, tobacco, animal care, children's services, which includes daycare facilities, as well as locations where you're able to have children's birthday parties. Another thing would be like the jump zones where you're able to have kids go in there and have like a playtime area, gas stations, massage establishments, motor vehicle services. So we're talking about mechanic shops, public place of amusement, any place that's going to have any type of live music or charge a cover charge at the door. Those are considered more specialized licenses, and it requires a little bit more details and inspections. Some of them do require some fingerprinting too, because we do have to run background checks on some of these licenses as well. Next slide, please. So what are our standard application requirements when it comes to applying for a business license? So what we want to know is specifically, what are we giving this license? What's the legal name? What's the DBA, the ownership information, the legal entity type? So we want to know specifically, are you applying as a sole proprietor? Are you applying as a corporation, an LLC? And we're going to want to know who the members are of the corporation, the LLC. We want to make sure that if you are applying under a legal entity name, that you've already registered that legal entity with the Illinois Department, with the Illinois Secretary of State. We also need to know the business address location of where you're going to be applying for the business license. And of course, this only has to do with any business location that's within the city of Chicago. If you are thinking of applying for business outside of the city of Chicago in one of our neighboring suburbs, then you have to go to those municipalities to specifically find out what the requirements are for you to operate in those municipalities. So this just goes for any type of business that's going to be operating within the city of Chicago. We need to know, again, the business address, location, and the square footage. So how big is the space that you're going to be occupying at this particular location? We're going to want to know a description of your business activity. So specifically, what are you going to be doing at this location? And then we're also going to need to see a valid government issued ID for all the applicants that are applying. So some of the things that are applicable with our business information sheet where we gather all this information is, again, if you're registering your ownership information with the Illinois Secretary of State, we're going to want to see that file number. Also, we're going to need the federal employer identification number. Think about that as like the social security number for your legal entity, whether it's a corporation or an LLC. And we're also going to need an IDOR number. And this is only if you're doing any type of retail sales within the city of Chicago. So if you're more service-based where you're not actually selling anything tangible, then the IDOR number is not required. But if you are selling tangible items, clothing, food, accessories, things like that, then you would need an IDOR number. Some of the additional requirements, as I stated before, is that some of the business license applications, they are going to require a fingerprint-based criminal background check on every single owner, corporate officer, member, or any person that holds anywhere between 5 to 25% or more interests in the business, as well as every on-site manager. Even if these owners are not within the city of Chicago, if they live in a different state, if they live in a different country, we still require a background check and a fingerprint check, and we're still able to facilitate that for you in order to make sure that all the officers are properly vetted. Some of the examples, as I mentioned before, includes daycare facilities, massage establishment, tobacco retailers, and liquor all require a background check. One of the things too that we like to stress is before you commit yourself to an actual location is to come and check with zoning to make sure that that specific business activity is allowed at that specific location. What I like to tell people is that whenever you come down to the small business center to see us, just come down here with a couple of business addresses, ask to speak to zoning. We do have zoning specialists here available in our offices where you're able to talk to them and let them know specifically what business activities you're going to be doing and give us the business address location. That way zoning is able to do a quick review and let you know if it's allowed or if you're going to need any type of additional documents in order for you to be able to proceed at that particular location. Next slide, please. Zoning. So what is the zoning process? So when it comes to business licensing applications for zoning, the zoning reviewers are basically reviewing all the applications that come through the small business center, whether it's online or in person, and they're just verifying to make sure that that location where you're applying is allowed for you to do that particular business activity. The city of Chicago is divided into multiple zoning districts that cater to different businesses and neighborhood purposes. Each zoning district has its own set of regulations that dictate which type of business activities are allowed. So what does the zoning review actually include? So the zoning review is going to give you a proper classification of the business activity. It's going to let you know if the business activity is allowed at that specific location. And it's also going to let you know if you're going to have to provide additional requirements like compliance with parking, any landscaping, building requirements, and also verification of a valid driveway permit if you're like in a strip mall or if you're at a location where you have an actual driveway that's going to require a driveway permit. Next slide, please. So if you are looking to get zoning confirmation, you can always call the business call center at 312-74-GO-BIZ. And they will basically take down the information and they will give it to one of our zoning reviewers so that they can give you a call back to answer your question. Like I mentioned before, we are available here at the Small Business Center at City Hall. We do take walk-in consultations. We are open Monday through Friday from 8:30 in the morning to 4:30 p.m. I always suggest to come in earlier. That way you can avoid our heavier times, which tend to be midday. And, again, the thing that I do want to stress is before you commit yourself to any location, and I know that sometimes that's hard, you find a space that you really love, do not sign that lease. Make sure you come to us to check to make sure that that business location is allowed to do specifically what you want to do. A lot of the times this happens with retail food licenses, restaurants. It turns out you go, you see the space and, the landlord never pulled building permits with the city of Chicago to do some of the installation or some of the rehab work inside. So, it's good for you to come down here and talk to our zoning specialist so that they can give you all the requirements that you need in order for you to be able to proceed at that particular location. And just because the previous person was doing the same type of business activity that you're thinking about doing at that location, do not assume that that's also going to apply for you. They could have been grandfathered in, or they could have never had a business license. There's just a lot of things that come into play, and it's better just to make sure that you have all your bases covered before you sign that lease. So some of the important things to check during zoning requirements is, again, carefully examining the zoning requirements for that proposed business location and just ensuring that you comply with all of the application regulations. So whether you have to present building permits to show that the proper installations were done for that location, if you need any type of additional parking, that you're able to provide zoning with those particular requirements. And again, we're more than happy to explain all of that to you, either through phone or if you come and see us down at the Small Business Center. So there are some things to consider too when talking to our zoning team. So there are some licenses that are going to require a special use or a variation from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Some of those special uses would fall under a beauty, a nail, or a barbershop, massage establishments, parking for non-accessory parking lots, outdoor patios that are located above the first floor, taverns, pawn shops, secondhand dealer valuable objects, tattoo shops, microblading, permanent makeup. Again, once you come and you tell us specifically the location that you're trying to apply for and the specific business activity that you are trying to do, then zoning will let you know if a special use is required, and then they'll explain to you what that process is and how to go about it. Also with variations, so if it's amusement, a PPA, if it's anywhere within 125 feet of any of the following RS1, RS2, and RS3 zoning districts, then a variation is going to be needed. But again, zoning will go over all those requirements with you. So now we move on to public way use. So the city streets and sidewalks and parkways are all considered public. They're all considered public way. And that means that the city is the landlord for this type of public way, and a business owner needs a permit in order to occupy the public way. So there are 3 different types of categories for public way use. We have over street level, above grade. So this includes your canopies, your awnings, your signs, your light fixtures, balconies, banners, bay windows. On street level, at grade, this includes our planters, our decorative pavers, our bollards, windscreens, kiosk, sidewalk cafes, sidewalk signs, those A-frame signs that you sometimes see outside of businesses, as well as anything under street level, which includes our vaults, our conduits, which is encased wiring, caissons, foundation, earth retention system, irrigation system, grease basins, and grease separators. So our most common public way use types are obviously signs, awning, our sidewalk cafes, our canopies, light fixtures, banners, fences, trash containers, security cameras, and planters. How long is the public way use permit good for? So our public way use permits are good for 5-year terms. You are billed annually. The only permit that is not a 5-year term is a sidewalk cafes. Sidewalk cafe permits are annual permits with a term from March 1st to the last day of February. How do you know when a public way use permit is needed? So anything that's encroaching outside of the property line over or below grade requires a public way use permit. Can public way use permits be transferred from businesses to business at that same location? So while public way use permits are technically non-transferable, there are some situations when a permits for unchanged and fixed installations and structures can be transferred. Some of the good examples include vaults, light fixtures, or canopy awnings without lettering or business logo. So think about like a Subway shop. If it's changing ownership, but the sign is remaining the same, then we're able to transfer then those permits to the new legal entity that's going to be taking over that specific location. What can be done for businesses that require a public way use permit but are regulated through the state or own the property? So again, this falls for doctor's office, attorney's office, real estate offices. So even though they're licensed by the Illinois Department of Professional Regulation, because they are putting a sign that's going to be encroaching over the public way, they still require to get a public way use permit from our department, even though they're not required to have an actual business license from us. The process is very simple. In order for us to create the public way use permit account with the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, they're just going to have to fill out a business information sheet with us and just submit it as part of their online application. So what is our public way use applicant permit process? So to begin the application process, you're able to visit IPI at cityofchicago.org. So this is a brand new web portal that helps improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our public way use permitting, which allows the applicants and any existing public way use holders to apply for new permits, renew their existing permits, pay any outstanding fees, any annual and outstanding debt, and they're able to do this all from the comfort of their home. They're able to do this online. The application process is very easy. You have to create an account through our IPI City portal, begin the application process, and you're actually able to check the status of your online permits and what process they're in directly online. Once you start the application process, then you go on to completing the application. So the applicants are expected to provide the following. And again, these requirements can vary based on the permit type, but more than likely, we always ask for obviously applicant information, who is going to be legally responsible for this public way use permit. We're going to want to know public way use information. So we need the address of where this permit is going to be located at. We're going to want photos. We're going to want plans, diagrams, to give us, a sketch of what it's supposed to look like with all of the measurements. And we also ask for general liability insurance with the proper liability limit amounts, and obviously noting that the city is additionally insured. So once you have all of these items, then you're able to submit your application, and you're able to submit a complete public way use application for our department to do the intake review. Once the application is submitted, it's referred to the appropriate inspecting departments for approval. The system will cancel any applications after 60 days of inactivity on the user's end. So even if you just created a user profile and let's say you just started to apply for an awning, if you have not touched that application in 60 calendar days, the system will automatically cancel that application for you, at which point, if you want to continue on, then you're going to basically have to reapply again, at which point it will give you a brand new permit number. The application cannot be reopened. And like I mentioned, you would have to submit a brand new application in order to continue on with your public way use permit process. So how do you renew the permits? As I mentioned before, each of our permits are valid for 5 years. The applicants are billed every single year. So you will be getting email notifications when payment is due. And you'll also be getting email notifications if payment isn't made once the billing cycle starts. We need general liability insurance. So that has to be resubmitted annually just to make sure that everything is up to date. And at the end of the 5-year term, the application process will need to be repeated. So after 5 years, and once like I mentioned, each permit is valid for 5 years. Once the 5-year period is up, then you have the option to renew that permit. If nothing has changed, then it's just renewing it like you did previously. If there's been something new that's changed, if you change the facing on and lights and things like that, then a brand new permit is going to have to be created in order to accommodate the changes that were made. If there is any outstanding debt owed to the city, so if you owe anything to the water department, if you owe anything on your business license, the permit will not be issued until that is taken care of. If you are found to be operating without a public use permit, it could be subject to removal order and fines anywhere between $25 to $500 per violation, depending on the type of public way use occupation. Some of the special considerations, like I mentioned before, are sidewalk cafe permits that have a 12-month term, and they have to be applied for and issued every single year. Our sidewalk cafe seasons begins on March 1st and then ends on the last day of February. So during this time, you're able to apply for your sidewalk cafe. The annual non-refundable sidewalk cafe permit fee varies depending on the size and the location of the sidewalk cafe. However, the minimum sidewalk cafe permit fee is $600.
Thank you very much, Linda. Next up, we have Amanda from BACP.
Hi, everyone. This is Amanda Weiland. I am an assistant commissioner with BACP. I oversee the hospitality licensing for the city, which includes liquor licenses as well as public place of amusement licenses. And so a lot of what I'm going to talk about today builds off of what Linda just discussed. We have the general licensing requirements, but as she stated, liquor and public place of amusement, which we refer to as PPA, have some additional requirements. We are some of the most regulated licenses within the city. The background checks and fingerprinting that Linda had mentioned will be required for both a liquor license and a PPA license. We have on-site inspections. Our licenses also require notice to the community. So registered voters will be notified of your pending liquor or PPA application, as well as your local alderman and your local police commander. So getting down to the basics, there are three main types of liquor licenses within the city of Chicago. If you are looking to sell liquor for consumption on site, there's two main types. The first would be a tavern license. That would be where your primary business activity is going to be the sale and consumption of alcohol. The second is what we refer to as a consumption on premises incidental activity. This is where the consumption of alcohol on premise is going to be incidental or secondary to your primary activity. The best example of this is always a restaurant, right? The main purpose of your restaurant is selling food, but you would also offer liquor as a secondary activity. The third main liquor license is a packaged goods license. And so this is if you're looking to open corner store, grocery store, wine store, anything where you're looking to sell packaged goods to go that will not be consumed on site, you would need a packaged goods license. All three of these licenses are 2-year terms, and they are $4,400 every 2 years. In addition to our sort of basic liquor licenses, we do have 2 additional types of licenses that we consider sort of add-on licenses, meaning you have to have an underlying tavern or consumption on premise license in order to even apply for these. The first would be an outdoor patio. So anytime that you are operating, we'll just use the restaurant example, and you want to have an outdoor patio, that is a secondary liquor license that you would have to apply for at a cost of $1,760, again, 2-year license term. And then we also offer a late hour liquor license. General liquor license hours for consumption on premises are Sunday through, I always struggle in defining this, Sunday through Friday, I guess we'll say, till 2 a.m. And then that Saturday you can be open till 3 a.m., the Saturday that goes into Sunday morning. If you apply for a late hour liquor license, it extends your hours till 4 a.m., 5 a.m. on that Saturday into Sunday. Within the municipal code, there are some restrictions on where late hour license applications can even be applied for. So if you are in any of the wards listed below, there is a prohibition on even applying for a late hour liquor license. As Linda was talking about before, liquor and PPA is one of the more regulated licenses, and zoning is always going to be your very first step. Underlying allowable land use is always going to control everything regarding your business license application. As Linda mentioned, it's the very first thing we're always going to check. And there are specific zoning restrictions to liquor itself. We also, in addition to zoning roadblocks, have what's called liquor moratoriums in the city. This is fully within the control of your local alderman. Aldermen have the ability to create areas within their ward where the issuance of a new liquor license is outright prohibited. There are some exceptions to moratoriums, including, again, the restaurant example, hotels, theaters, if you're looking to open a sports stadium, those sort of things. But otherwise, you will have to address the moratorium. They're strictly within the control of the alderman. The alderman decides if they can be lifted. The alderman decides when they're going to be laid down. So if you come into BACP and we tell you there's a liquor moratorium there, you will have to work with your local alderman. Liquor also has what we refer to kind of shorthand as 100-foot restrictions. So liquor licenses are not allowed within 100 feet of libraries, churches, hospitals, schools. If you are looking at a location and you are within 100 feet of any of those affected institutions, there is a second process you will have to take under for what's called a distance reduction. And if that ever comes up, one of the hospitality consultants can walk you through exactly what's required for that process. I do want to point out that BACP offers proximity restriction measurements for a cost of $250. What that does is sends one of our investigators out to your proposed location to see if any of these affected institutions are within 100 feet, and to see, just if the license is even available at this location. If you move forward with your application, that $250 fee is applied to your overall application fee, which is also important to point out for everyone. Finally, I'm going to close out with public place of amusement licenses. So these licenses are required anytime you want to present amusement activity to the public. Some examples are bowling alleys, movie theaters. The axe throwing was really popular for a while. Nightclubs, pool halls, arcades. Anytime you're looking to provide amusement to the public, you will need a PPA license. So a PPA license is required if your official occupancy is over 100 and you're providing the amusement. And a PPA license is also always going to be required if you are providing entertainment to the public and charging a fee, even if your occupancy is under 100. So if you have a tiny movie theater that's only 50 seats, but you're charging $10 for the movie, you're going to be required to get a PPA license. As we've been reviewing, PPA licenses have their own strict zoning requirements, location restrictions, etc. They have the same restriction against being next to affected institutions, except it's 200 feet for a PPA license. And it also will give all the notice that we discussed in liquor to the registered voters and local aldermen. And just sort of a warning here at the bottom, PPA licensing can be very complicated. I highly recommend that you meet with one of the hospitality business consultants to discuss your business plan, as Linda mentioned as well, before purchasing a building, before entering into a lease. We never want to see you stuck with property that you can't move forward with your proposed business activity on.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Great job. Next up, we have Miguel, the City of Chicago Office of Labor Standards. Miguel?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Miguel Campos. I'm an assistant commissioner currently overseeing our Office of Labor Standards. So the Office of Labor Standards is housed within the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. So I'll quickly go over ordinances that pertain to the office and an overview of the office. We are dedicated to promoting and enforcing all of Chicago's labor laws. We seek to engage communities and protect workers through a strong investigation and enforcement regime. And we process complaints, conduct investigations, mediate disputes, direct settlement proceedings, issue violations, and if necessary, we would seek licensure discipline against employers. In the last calendar year, we received over 400 complaints. We have closed over 330 of them, and we realized over $690,000 in restitution directly back to workers. Next slide, please. Our labor laws at the moment include the below: minimum wage theft, a paid sick leave ordinance, a fair work week or scheduling ordinance, an anti-retaliation ordinance, and then there are domestic worker contract requirements. As I stated before, our minimum wage, so I'll focus a little bit on that. So commencing July 1st, so not this Saturday, but next Saturday, the minimum wage will increase. The minimum wage in Chicago is tiered. So if you're a large business with 21 or more employees, that minimum wage is increasing to $15.80. And if you are a small employer or a small business, which we constitute as someone who has 4 to 20 employees, then the minimum wage is increasing to $15 an hour. The minimum wage goes up every July 1st. It either increases based on the consumer price index or 2.5%, whichever is lower. So this year, the consumer price index for all urban consumers increased 4% from May of 2022 to May of 2023. So the increase was the lower 2.5%. Employers must post this informational poster that you see on the screen at the moment at your place of business. So it contains information on the minimum wage, the paid sick leave ordinance, wage stuff, how you can report human trafficking, and it offers instructions on how you may file a complaint with the Office of Labor Standards. In addition, this updated flyer or poster needs to be provided to covered employees on an annual basis, along with the minimum wage increase information, which is updated every July 1st. This poster also gets updated. And then there's an additional poster that's required if the scheduling or the Fair Work Week ordinance applies to you. This too is something that must be provided to covered employees on an annual basis. And then this is also updated on an annual basis by July 1st. The version that you see on the screen is the updated or current version. So I mentioned that we process complaints and investigations. Complaints can be submitted via form. You can either fill out a form online or mail. You can call 311. You can use the city's mobile app, Shy 311. All of these resources are also available on the Office of Labor Standards specific website. So we would receive a complaint. We would conduct intake or triage on it. That includes reviewing the complaint and contacting complainant and employers, conduct an investigation, which oftentimes requires that we issue subpoena to get employment records from an employer, go into settlement negotiations, and if necessary, file a case with the Department of Administrative Hearings, the Mayor's Licensing Commission, or Circuit Court if necessary. I mentioned our website, so it's a valuable resource tool for employees and employers alike. Each ordinance that falls within the Office of Labor Standards jurisdiction has its own section or click box. It contains information on the specific ordinance, any applicable rules pertaining to that ordinance, and a frequently asked questions document. The information that's on the Office of Labor Standards website is available in the top 5 languages that are spoken in the city of Chicago. And then you can reach that website by visiting www.chicago.gov/labor standards. If you require more information, we also have hosted over 41 webinars in the past 3 years. Those, along with any other webinar that's hosted by the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, can be accessed by visiting the department's YouTube page, which is youtube.com/Chicago BACP.
Thank you very much, Miguel. And last but not least, for BACP, we have Anthony with the Small Business Advocacy Division. Anthony?
Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Anthony Lindsay, and I'm Assistant Commissioner for the Small Business Advocacy Unit. Under my unit, we have several initiatives that we administer on behalf of the department. One of them is the Neighborhood Business Development Centers, also known as NBDCs. We have over 70 delegate agencies that touch all 77 community areas, and they have a total of 96 program types under 7 program categories. We work with chambers of commerce and business organizations, which have a very strong neighborhood network, and they coordinate efforts with their local aldermen, the city, and other community partners. NBDCs help startup entrepreneurs and existing business owners with a variety of services, information about a particular neighborhood, getting a new small business started, troubleshooting city-related issues for small businesses, connecting businesses to financial resources, business-to-business networking opportunities, employment and workforce development assistance, consumer marketing assistance, and connecting your business to the local community. To learn more about the NBDCs, you can go to chicago.gov/NBDC. Next slide, please. We also oversee the Chicago Business Centers. There are a total of 8 Chicago-based business service organizations located in neighborhoods to serve as regional hubs, providing business licensing assistance and other resources for small businesses. CBCs provide support to startup entrepreneurs and existing business owners who need the following types of assistance: business license, public way use permit, and city resources support, funding for underserved populations, professional services, including sector-specific guidance. To learn more about the Chicago Business Centers, go to chicago.gov/CBC. And as you can see on the screen is the list of our 8 CBC agencies that help the agency carry out these services. Next slide, please. We have a new initiative that we just recently closed the RFP on and is currently under review. We're looking to award 1 up to 2 agencies to assist us with this initiative. It's called EDGE, Encouraging Diversity, Growth, and Equity Initiative. The EDGE initiative serves as an essential component to help develop, strengthen, and advocate for Chicago's small and women-owned business enterprises, supplier community, supports and advocates for our small business ecosystem by creating robust initiatives and programs that targets minority and women-owned business enterprises, assisting their increased participation in economic development and government contracting. Committed to cultivating a competitive and diverse economic environment that drives equitable access to contracts and supports growth for success. This program is very important because what we're looking to do is help minority and women-owned businesses scale up. They may have some work with the city as a small business and as not as the prime, but as a subcontractor. But we're looking to assist these businesses in the scaling up to become prime contractors on city contracts. And so once our 2, hopefully our 2 delegate agencies are selected, they will then begin to work with the small MWBE community and helping them to, if it has anything to do with bonding and the likes, they can assist them with that. But what we're looking to do at the end of the day is help small women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses scale up to become prime contractors on the City of Chicago projects. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Anthony. And that wraps up our presentations from 4 BACP staff members. And now is time for questions. We've got quite a few questions in the chat box, and I will take this moment to answer about 80% of the questions, which people were asking if this is recorded, if the PowerPoint is going to be shared. Yes, this whole expo is being recorded and will be available at our YouTube page, www.youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. It should be up sometime tomorrow. So now for the questions for our panelists. We've got one probably for Linda. Do home bakers need licenses?
So the city does not allow you to sell prepared food from your home. So The option in order for you to do that is to get a shared kitchen user license. We have two options. We have a 90-day and we also have a 2-year license. What we're going to need is for you to basically find a shared kitchen location. And you can just type in shared kitchen location, City of Chicago. We have a lot of shared kitchen locations within the City of Chicago. You can always find one that's maybe close to your home. Go check them out, check out their spaces, see what they offer, see how much they charge for you to be able to be in their facility and rent out their kitchen. And if this is something that you're interested in moving forward with, when you come to see us at City Hall, we're basically going to need to see a copy of your menu. It doesn't have to be fancy. You can literally write it out on a piece of paper with all the ingredients and what it is that you're going to be offering. So what type of cakes, pies, desserts you're going to be making. They're going to want to see a contract with the shared kitchen facility that's been signed within the last 30 days, as well as City of Chicago Food Manager Certificate. There's two types of certificates. There's one that's for the state of Illinois, and then there's one that's for the City of Chicago. We require the one that's for the City of Chicago. So whenever you sign up to take these courses, verify with the instructor that they are going to provide you with the City of Chicago Food Sanitation Certificate. So once you have your menu, your lease agreement from the shared kitchen facility and the food sanitation certificate, then you can come and see us here at City Hall to meet with Anna Nelson, our health supervisor, and she's in on Tuesdays and Thursdays only. Again, I suggest coming in early because she does, her day does get pretty busy as the afternoon kind of, starts to settle in, but she's only with us on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Awesome. Thank you, Linda. Another question, I believe, for you, Linda. For clarification, if I'm licensed by IDPFR, for example, a security or investigation company, I don't need to apply for a business license?
No, not from us, because again, you are applying with the Illinois Department of Professional Regulation. So they're vetting you and you're being licensed through the state. So we're not going to double license you for something that's already being licensed by the state. So security companies, private investigators, doctor's office, dentists, attorneys, CPAs, real estate offices, insurance agencies, we do not license.
Gotcha. Next question. Do nonprofits need a Chicago business license?
It really depends on what business activity you're doing. So whether you're a non-for-profit, whether you're a sole proprietor or corporation, an LLC, you tell us specifically how you're going to legally be licensed. And then again, it just depends on your business activity. So if you're a non-for-profit, but you're a non-for-profit daycare, you still need a City of Chicago business license in order to have a daycare facility within the city.
Gotcha. How do background checks happen with no social security number?
So if you don't have a social security number, then we take ITIN numbers as well.
Gotcha. Here's a question for Amanda, and possibly Linda as well. What if you have a PPA and you want to add liquor sales?
Anytime you are looking to add liquor, you're going to need to apply for and receive a liquor license. It's very, very common that PPA and liquor go together. Either you have a restaurant where you're also offering some sort of entertainment, or the examples from earlier, a lot of like theaters and movie theaters nowadays provide alcohol on site. So it's something very common, but again, come in, meet with one of our hospitality consultants. We will do the checks to make sure you don't have moratoriums or other restrictions, but that's a very common business model.
Thank you. Here's a question for Linda, I believe. Do you need a PWU or public way use to put up a sidewalk sign or a table outside the business to display product once in a while?
So if you're going to put out any type of signage, whether it's those A-frame signs, then yes, you do require a public way use permit. As far as having a table to display your products on the sidewalk, that is not allowed. I understand that a lot of businesses and a lot of people do things that aren't necessarily allowed with the city, but that is not something that we license. So you are not able to have tables outside to show your merchandise. The only thing that's allowed, like I mentioned before, are, sidewalk A-frame signs, canopies, awnings, and things like that, but you're not allowed to have a table to display your goods on the sidewalk. The only thing that we license with any tables and chairs are for sidewalk cafes, and for that, you need to have a retail food license already. You need to be a tavern or a brewery in order to be able to have a sidewalk cafe in front of your business.
Thank you. Here's a question for Miguel. I have a business in Chicago and the suburbs. I have 26 employees total, but only 10 of these employees are in Chicago. Will the minimum wage be considered $15 or $15.80 for my 10 Chicago employees?
It would be the higher amount. So we would take the total amount of your employees. So globally, or in your case, locally, you have more than 20. So the 10 employees conducting work within city limits would be paid $15.80 an hour.
Thank you. What are the licenses for a hookah bar that serves food, liquor, and would like to have this service on the public way?
There's probably a combination of myself and Linda. A hookah bar is going to require, and Linda can correct me if I'm wrong, a tobacco license. And when you have a tobacco license, which has a lot of restrictions on the activity that can occur within there, same for a cigar lounge, you cannot have food or liquor consumption on premise as well, due to the Clean Air Act. So you can't consume food or liquor where you are also consuming tobacco products. And Linda can add to that if there's anything to add.
Yeah, so with a hookah lounge, it has to be a one-story building, and it cannot be touching any other building adjacent to it. So it needs to be a standalone building in order to be able to actually smoke on site. Like Amanda mentioned, there is no food sales that are allowed, no liquor sales that are allowed. You're able to sell like pops and chips, but no open food. So no like burgers, salads, and things like that. And you're not going to be able to have a sidewalk cafe or something in front of your business in order to have them smoke outside of the business. Again, it has to be a standalone business. Nothing can be touching it. It cannot be touching, any other businesses on the sides, on the back. And a lot of the times with hookah lounges, they do require a special use. But if there's a specific location that you're interested in, then I suggest you come down to City Hall to talk to one of our zoning consultants so that they can give you more information.
Thank you. And we've got time for one more question. And then I will just point everyone to the chat box. We have some of our BACP staff sharing links for places that you can find a lot of answers online as well. But our final question for this webinar, as an owner of a commercial space, what is the responsibility of the walkway sign usage after the tenant has moved? If the tenant did not remove the awning, will the owner of the property be responsible for future cost of the signage?
So when it comes to public way use signs, if the previous business has left the property and they're no longer there, then basically someone needs to be responsible for whatever is over the public way. So whether it's a sign, it's an awning, unless there's going to be a new business that's going to be at that location and is basically going to, still use the awning, still use the sign, then they would have to apply for it under their new legal entity. Or if the property owner then wants to continue on with the use, then they would need to apply for it in order for us to transfer that ownership to them. If they don't want anything to do with it, they don't want to deal with it, then they have to get it removed and send us pictures that the awning, that the sign has been removed in order for us to close out that application.
Thank you, Linda. And thanks again to our BACP staff, Linda, Amanda, Miguel, and Anthony. At this time, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break before our next webinar.